Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Total War Warhammer tournament cast. In this particular game, this is actually going to be Game 5 in the Total Warhammer Cup number 2 finals between Onyaji, who will be playing the Wood Elves, and he's going to be facing off against Brent Verlin, who is also playing the Wood Elves. So again, these guys seem to be a big fan of mirror matches, as we did just get a Dwarf versus Dwarf mirror match. Hopefully, I will definitely do a better job of keeping track of which army is which. It's a little bit tricky, but as you can see, they do have an orange trim here. And again, this is Brent's army, so he has the orange trim, just for your guys' reference, and it looks like Onyaji's army has a yellow trim. Still, though, if you were just looking, from an overhead perspective, it's very easy to kind of mix up which troops look alike. So, again, guys, forgive me ahead of time, but I'll do my best to cast these mirror matches here. So, as far as Onyaji's army goes, he has a front line of War Dancers, and War Dancers actually seem like a pretty good pick, kind of like Savage Orcs or other units like that. Now, these guys will hit pretty hard in melee against light armored units. They actually have 40 weapon strength, so if he decides to bring like Eternal Guards or something like that, the War Dancers will do an excellent job tearing them to pieces. On top of that, they also do have extremely high leadership with upwards of 80 when nearby and buffed by leadership, so pretty good stuff there. In the secondary line, he has Glade Guards, and he just has the regular Glade Guards, so these guys don't have the or the Starfire or any kind of funny business like that, so again, perhaps it's a cost thing, but I suppose the poison might be nice in this matchup, but still, the other stats, you can probably save money by getting these guys, and it's not a bad choice. So he does have 4 groups. So as you would expect, there's probably going to be a lot of missile exchange in the Wood Elf matchup, and I'm very interested to see how it goes. As far as the rest of his army goes, it looks like Onyaji does have a spell singer with the Lure of Life. He does have let's go ahead and take a look here. We'll zoom in nice and close. And it looks like he does have an Earth Blood, which is pretty good. And he doesn't actually have a regrowth. He has an Awakening of the Wood. So definitely very eager to see how he uses that. Though, as you guys have taught me, the Life Bloom does trigger whenever a spell is cast. So the Awakening of the Wood, it's a very cheap spell, and it will trigger that Life Bloom as well as do some damage. So perhaps, maybe that's the optimal way of using that healing. Aside from that, he does have a Glade Lord. It looks like it's the female version, which is more of the skirmisher type. If I'm not mistaken, it's kind of hard to get in there and get a good look. But it does have the Arrow of Kurnus as well as the Prey of Anathrama, which is such a good ability. A relatively short cooldown, but it lasts for 31 seconds. And when you're playing against the Wood Elves with all that missile pressure, that's enough to just absolutely put someone down. So it looks like he is supporting them by some Hawk Riders. Hawk Riders have decent missile attacks with 38 missile damage strength, but they also have 45 armor-piercing melee attacks. So perhaps he's looking to kind of, trap the opponent's lord with the prey and then come in and swoop, literally swoop on them and get in there with that 45 melee weapon strength as well as the armor-piercing stats. So we will see how that goes. Aside from that, it looks like there are some troops hidden back here. I'm trying to see. I see something. It looks like he does have some Wild Riders without shields back here. So again, pretty good against lightly armored targets. They won't do well against, Eternal Guards or things like that or the trees or anything. But, in the Wood Elf pick, War Dancers seem like they'd be a pretty common pick, and War Dancers will just get absolutely run down by Wild Riders. So, perhaps there's some metagaming going on here, and we will see how it turns out. So, again, this is Onyaji's army for any of you guys who are just joining, and also it's a little bit tricky, as the armies are the same. And it looks like he does have 2 additional groups of Wild Riders here, so, or is it 2 or is it just 1? It looks like there's just 1 in there, so 2 groups in total with no shields. So as far as Brent Verlin's army goes, he does have it looks like the female version of the Glade Lord, which does have the Prey, as well as the Arrows of Kurnus, and it's also carrying a potion, of course. So I think in the competitive metagame, I personally love using Mel Gibson, but, these lords, as far as just dragging games out and really making those atrocious plays, these guys are definitely going to outvalue, Mel Gibson. Although, I don't know, Mel Gibson's definitely good, and he does cause terror, which is nice, but just having the flying mobility, the extra Arrow of Kurnus cast, as well as the ability to heal, and the Prey of Anathrama, is that what it is? Yeah, Anathrama. It's just such a valuable ability. Honestly, it's pretty hard to justify using the other lords. But, so he does have that. It looks like he does have 2 Great Eagles. So as opposed to those Hawk Riders, he actually does have the Great Eagles, which is pretty interesting. Very fast with 110 move speed. So again, these guys will be pretty good at cycle charging War Dancers, but you don't want to leave them in there as they only have 30 armor. They might be helpful against the Wild Riders. We'll see. It'll be pretty interesting. I've always had trouble finding a niche for the Great Eagles, but again, I don't think they are a terrible pick. On top of that, he does have some Eternal Guards in the back line, so probably just to deal with Wild Riders and things like that. So if he's able to keep these guys near the War Dancers and support them against the Cav charges, I think he could do pretty well for himself. And on top of that, front line of War Dancers, he does have a Spell Singer with the Lord of Beasts, actually. So it looks like he does have a Flock of Doom, expecting a pretty big infantry blob. And then he also does have a Spell Singer with the Lore of Life. So I like that he only has 1 ability with each of them, because again, it's going to be, when having multiple Lords of Magic can be very intensive on your kind of reserves, but still, these 2 particular units, I think that, if you just bring 1 ability with each, you'll be A-okay. On top of that, he does have Wild Riders, I believe, vanguarded over here, somewhere up in the tree line. Let's go ahead and take a look here. And yes, he does. So he has Wild Riders with shields, actually. So not a bad choice, considering that his opponent actually has a ton of Glade Guards here. So having those shields is going to be pretty nice. And they are silver shields, so that is a 50% chance to block. So 1, 2, 3 groups. So he definitely has the cav advantage, and we will see how that plays out for him. So let's get right down to business, guys. So you can see that Brent Verlin shooting in with an arrow of Kernus right away and making pretty good contact with this Glade Lord right here. And it looks like they're actually going to trade. So let's see if he actually makes contact here. We'll keep the mouse. And yeah, so brings them down to relatively similar HP, actually, within, 50 HP points of each other. But he is pushing out with his Hawk Rider groups as well as his Glade Lord. And you can see his Infantry Ball as well as these Glade Guards are following up. So, I think a lot of this matchup is ultimately going to come down to who can get that optimal prey. Whoever can lock the other Lord down and just absolutely punish him with the Air Force and the missiles is really going to come out ahead here. So it looks like he does discover these Wild Riders in the forest, and you can see they are indeed forced to retreat. So they're going to pull back down the hill. So I guess the surprise is kind of up, but again, he probably knew some funny business was going on. And you can see the Glade Lord actually getting a nice shot here and killing one of the Hawk Rider models. And, anytime you can kill a model is pretty nice because it essentially negates an entire unit's worth of fire, which with these small unit groups is pretty good. So the Wild Riders look like they're pulling back around Brent's army. It looks like they're going to position here, and we'll see how it goes. He does have a pretty big advantage as it pertains to cav, so he's probably going to wait till it gets a little bit closer and then try and force a fight with some of these Wild Riders. But again, those Hawk Riders are lurking above, so it'll be interesting to see how those Hawk Riders play into this particular matchup. I don't use them that much, and again, I've never actually played a Wood Elf versus Wood Elf mirror. I don't particularly like playing mirror matches, so I'm definitely learning a lot from this series, guys. So we'll see how it goes. Looks like the Spellsinger with the Lord Beast is getting ready to party. His infantry ball is, it's not huge, but still a nice flock of doom right here on top of all these missile units. Definitely will do a lot of damage, and you can see the Arrow of Kernus cooldown is coming back. So again, he's probably going to return the favor here with an Arrow of Kernus in just a second, but he does get that prey. So you can see it's locked down. This is very, very bad because that's 31 seconds. So now all of these missile units are going to come in. They can shoot while moving, and then yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. Essentially, the first person to get that prey and just take this absolute beating, he's probably going to have to use his Potion of Toughness here. You can see that the prey is only halfway over, so he still has to take several volleys from all of these troops. You can see the Hawk Riders coming in for the kill. The Great Eagle's attempting to intercept, and it does intercept a little bit, but still the Eagle takes huge shock damage from that charge. This other Eagle right here is jumping on these other Hawk Riders, and it looks like it's actually swooping up to help out the Lord. But still, he takes a ton of damage. He uses an Earthblood. I don't know if he used his potion, but still, that's pretty serious. So very, very well played by Onyaji getting that. But Brent Verlin is retaliating by bringing his Wild Riders around. And it looks like Onyaji does not have any spears or anything like that, so he's going to have to take these charge with these War Dancers and use his Wild Rider numbers to try and, mitigate that threat. But still, they're coming in here, and it's definitely going to be a pretty heated charge. He does have a Spellsinger with the Lure of Life in here, and, these ones do have shields, so their melee defense is a little bit higher, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like... Yeah, let's go ahead. Oh, that's big. That's actually, that's a 6 or 7 stat there. So they do charge into one another, and it's so hard to tell who's who here. But still, the charge bonus actually not as bad as you would think. Not too many losses incurred by Onyaji's forces, but still 2 more groups of Wild Riders coming into support, and they have engaged on some of these War Dancers and are just shredding them. You can see these War Dancers lost maybe 10 to 15 models almost instantly against those units, and you can see some of the Hawk Riders coming in on the flank to support, getting a nice rear charge, but Brent Verlin bringing in his additional group of Wild Riders to flank them. So this is just such a chaotic battle over here, and it would definitely be nice to see an Earthblood, but it looks like he does use an Awakening of the Wood in the front line to trigger that heal across his troops. Some spears also coming in over here, which is pretty well played. So Brent Verlin does pull back, realizing that there's just a lot of chaos here, a lot of missile fire. That's a very healthy missile line back here, just kind of going free range. But some of these War Dancers do squeak through, but they get broken immediately by a volley or two. So that cav battle is just pure chaos, and honestly, I'm having a little bit of trouble telling who's who, but some of Brent Verlin's spears did come in, but they're just being mowed down by these War Dancers. You can go ahead and take a look and just see that these guys are just going flying literally everywhere, and the War Dancers performing very, very well. The spears were a little late to the party. There was a lot of fighting there before they got there, and it's definitely not looking good for them. So Brent did have to pull a lot of his troops back to the forest here, but yeah, a lot of them got lost. And those Hawk Riders on that kind of charge on their backs was huge. That initial prey was very, very good for disrupting and kind of lowering his Lord, and again, he gets preyed. Brent's Lord is taking a ton of damage, and it does provide negative 22% to the missile resistance, and it looks like they called GG at that point. So a very fast, explosive matchup. Definitely very interesting seeing those mirror matches. I haven't seen a lot myself, but it was definitely a very well-played game. So as far as Onyaji's forces go, the War Dancers performed very, very well in the front line. And as far as, Brent's forces go, the War Dancers also performed pretty well. The Eternal Guards really underperformed, though. I was pretty surprised. I mean, they got shredded by those War Dancers. and they weren't necessarily in a position where they could have been used defensively, simply because Onyaji had such a massive missile advantage. And though he didn't, most of his missiles were focusing the enemy lords, and you can see those Great Eagles. There's a reason we didn't see a lot of them, guys, because they just got burned down by these Glade Guards, if I'm not mistaken. Either that or the Hawk Riders, as well as this Glade Lord, were able to just punish them so hard. So I think, part of that particular game and the reason it went that way is because the Great Eagles just vastly underperformed. Because, yeah, the Wild Riders engaged and they had numbers and, all that good stuff, and they had higher melee defense. They also had the shield, so they were able to mitigate a lot of the missile damage that was coming their way. But still, they didn't have that air support or that heroic support. Those Hawk Riders were able to get a rear charge on these Wild Riders when they engaged, and also the enemy Lord, Ondyaji's Lord, was able to come in. Ondyaji, I think it's Ondyaji. My apologies if I get that wrong. I'm definitely having a little bit of trouble there, but I think that rear charge coming in was a big factor in that game. So very well played game. I hope you guys enjoyed the game 5 of the Total Warhammer Cup number 2. So again, that was the final, and Ondyaji was indeed the winner of the tournament. He was also the one who originally sent these replays to Shetland Apache, who then sent them to me. So thank you so much for sending that excuse me. Thank you so much for sending that my way. Also, guys, Ondyaji does have a Twitch channel. I'll put that in the description below. So if you guys want to go check him out, I believe he does stream. I'm not sure if he streams multiplayer, but I'm pretty sure based on what I've seen, he would indeed do that. So thanks again for watching the tournament cast, guys. I'll be casting a lot more series between different players and hopefully get you guys some nice, diverse gameplay. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.